we live in a country that is so rich culturally, and there is so many things that are so interesting around us. We don't need to rely on the internet. The only way to describe the women in my family is ballsy. They would look for like the next man around me to sort of listen to, till I walked up and said, it is just me. I think it's not the overt bit that gets to me. It's the under the table of, when are you having babies? How are you going to balance? My whole journey with sustainability has been about asking the right kind of questions. Good design has to be sustainability. Questioning of everything has been my mantra through life. This whole concept of the starving artist, one tight slap, I want money, give me money. If my business model is based on a percentage of what you spend, then how am I ever going to be honest to you? There's only two ways to do new things. Either you do multiple and you start at the bottom rung of it, or you become really good at what you do, and then there's one equalizer there. There's no critique anymore. It's either hate or a thumbs up. So I'm a huge believer that the spaces you inhabit affect your moods. I can't even tie a bow, which is why I'm an absolute awe of anybody who can make anything with their own hands. There's only a few people who have been able to take craft to art.
From opulent palace weddings to some of the biggest top secret weddings we've seen come out of India in the last decade, be it Virat and Anushka's intimate wedding or Radhika and Anant Ambani's pre-wedding celebration, I think it is safe to say that Devika is not just a wedding designer, but truly a storyteller. Devika's work weaves together beautifully Indian arts, crafts, textures, colors, cultures, but most importantly, a couple's individuality and their love story to create memorable sets that will last them a lifetime. I am so eager to begin this conversation with Devika to find out how she has systematically and with integrity managed to push the envelope on disrupting what wedding planning and wedding design can look like in India. From charging a design fee, which in this industry was unheard of, to today weaving together concepts of cultural sensitivity and sustainability in all her designs. This is going to be a conversation that's going to teach you about how to do what she did and the future of wedding industry in India. This episode is powered by Nipposh. So let's get right into it, Devika. I always like to begin this conversation with understanding what is the origin story, because of course, like, only main character energies sit on this chair, and you are definitely one. In fact, you are like what I would hands down call a disruptor in the world of weddings. And weddings in India go back like, I don't know, centuries, so it's nothing new, but you managed to disrupt that. But I want to talk about how it all started, like you as a child. What was the origin?
So I think it's a safe space to say I'm obsessed with weddings, and I have been for as long as I can remember. It's just that when you're choosing a career, it's not the first thought that comes to your mind. It's also not something they teach you in career class in school, right? So I trained to be a journalist. I figured I'm too optimistic to be one. So I figured my other great love was design. And I tried to draw and go to design school, and I can't draw to save my life.
I can relate.
So there was no going to design school for me. But I think one of the things that stuck with me was, I think I was 10 when I went to my first wedding. And I still remember how I felt there.
How did you feel?
It was just a space of absolute joy. People coming together, lots of good food, just everybody extremely happy to be together. And I think it was that sense of togetherness coupled with joy that I will never forget. Just everybody getting dressed, so much laughter. I think I'll never forget just how absolutely cankerous that room was. Everybody was just like rolling with laughter from like morning to evening, and I love that bit. As a kid back then, I had literally the time of my life. So I think just that sort of feeling clung on to me. I majored in literature, tried to be a journalist, figured I was too much of an optimist to get through it. And then I was looking for a job, and someone said, listen, there's another wedding company, why don't you go and join them? And I was like, sure, let's give this a shot. And that's how I wound up in my first job. I worked there for 4.5 years.
Wow, okay.
Weddings back then were slightly different from what they were now.
What year are we talking about?
This is 2009. Yeah. So it was a while back. And I think back then weddings had suddenly become the rage. There was a sense of showmanship. what does a neighbor's wedding look like? This whole idea of the Chhatarpur wedding where you go to a farmhouse and get married. And in my first job, I didn't even know who was getting married. And I was just like, this can't be how things are going to be, where you're just going from one space to the other with no sort of thought on how things are going to be. And that's when I decided I'm going to start my own company with no background in design and business and a lot of guts. I was just like, okay, let's figure this out. And then I think a lot, Pinterest had started coming to India. So all the weddings back then had bird cages and pearls and white wedding gowns. And I remember one of the things I put down, and when I started, I put on a list of things I wanted to do. Number one was have more Indian weddings or have more like Indian color on Pinterest.
Representation, basically.
And I get such a huge kick when I Google something and I find my own like wedding photo on Pinterest, and I was like, this is it. This is what I wanted to do. And I see so much color now in international weddings because of us. So that's a short version of how it all happened.
Your Instagram actually looks like a Pinterest board in itself, like all of it.
Thank you. There's no intention of it. It's just my happy, colorful
just
life.
How you see the world. Yeah. So were you one of those kids who was running around in this wedding pulling down the...
Absolutely not. Those are the kids I want to beat up. No, I think I grew up in a family which is very textile, art, craft obsessed. I grew up in a city where karigars would come home. I grew up in Lucknow.
Wow.
And karigars would come home. So that it was October because the Pashmina gentlemen would come home.
Wow.
In every like Feb and March around Holi, someone would come from with all the chicken curry for the summer. And back then, like the muslin was different back then.
Yeah.
And you would just sit and we could go to like the khakas. We would pick out our own blocks, get everything embroidered. We used to go to Banaras every summer. We used to spend. So I have seen craft at a much more personal angle. My mum is obsessed with textiles. So she literally has a sari from every state of the country. So I grew up surrounded by a lot of art. A lot of sort of this self... wanted to do better in the spaces you lived in. So my mum would keep moving things around at home, just like seeing how we could make our home look better. We had a lot of parties growing up. My dad can celebrate anything from winning a cricket match to losing a cricket match. Both are calls for a party. So we were I grew up in a house which was always filled with people. There was always some sort of celebration going on. And I think I've taken all of that and made it into some form of a business.
Yeah. I think it has to be that. I always tell people like my greatest gift that parents gave me was the gift of boredom. So like what we were doing when we were really young, where we weren't being guided to like, okay, do this, do that, is what we're naturally going to grow up to do if we have the privilege.
True.
To pursue that. And I think that's what you did. And I love that you actually grew up in Lucknow where you were surrounded by so much art. Like I got goosebumps when you spoke about like Lucknowi and chicken curry. And
we never thought of it as art back then. It was just a way of life.
Yeah.
The other thing that I miss the most is seasonal changes, which don't happen in urban life anymore. And like just the idea of like winter clothes being dried out, mothballs being put in, trunks being pulled out, your wardrobes changing, your food changing, your garden landscape changing. And we don't see that in urban cityscapes anymore at all.
Yeah, where it sounds like almost like a storybook that I read about a small town girl, like
Correct.
These are also fascinating. Okay, so when you were growing up, like how much of influence did like Bollywood have on you and your idea of like weddings and romance? Or was it just actually the art and the culture that ignited this in you?
Very interesting question, because I feel I'm very removed from Bollywood. I'm on the borderline of being terrible because I don't recognize most people. That's how bad it is. But I suppose so my idea of romance came from books. It didn't come so much from Bollywood films. It, I think, came a lot more from the Hollywood film and a lot more from books, because literally I would read a book a day growing up.
Yes,
so I think that obsession of what romance could be, what the whole idea of so initially the idea of happily ever after, then growing out of the idea of happily ever after, I think all came from literature for me. And that continues to be like my one true love and my one sort of go-to of what life could possibly be.
So, you said you don't really refer to Pinterest. You have this wedding and like, so what is your point of reference or your inspiration?
I think everything around me, if that makes any sense. I think just walking down, we live in a country that is so rich culturally, and there is so many things that are so interesting around us. We don't need to rely on the internet. For me, Pinterest or even Google is a reference point. I'll give you a small example. While I was stuck in a traffic jam today, I crossed a firecracker shop. And I have a group with my design team called Brain Bank, where we just like trash like literally log cool ideas we have. And I was telling them, I was like, vintage firecracker boxes. And I don't know where it'll manifest, but just there's enough interesting things to see around you. And I feel that is what makes us unique, is that we're not going to find things off the internet. It's seeing what is around you, because I think that's far more inspiring.
So you think that this eye that you have of like curiosity and just absorbing what's around you has to do with just the way you were born, or it had to do with your environment and your nurture and the people you kind of, the home that you grew up in?
I don't think I can discount the home I grew up in and the way I was brought up at all. And that's a huge privilege to have parents who are supporting. In fact, my biggest tragedy is that I can't be an epic heroine because I have had no tragedy in my life. It's like there's no great tragedy that has befallen me. So I think definitely just having the safe space of being able to grow up a certain way has led to this sort of, and I know you have it as well, of seeing everything with a little bit of magic and wonder. And I think most people who read have it, of just this sort of eternal optimism that everything you're looking at
it's on the next page.
Beautiful. Correct.
There's another page.
Or just so I'll give you a really funny story. I went to Dhaka a couple of years ago, and I have this most glorious view of Dhaka. I saw the most beautiful spaces. I spent time with craftsmen and artisans there. My husband went to the same city, and he came back saying, what a crappy little city it is. Even the tempos have like railings, like jali over them. And how can you say it? And I was just like, but the Dhaka I saw was phenomenal, because I met with artists there, I met with craftsmen there. I was in really beautiful places there. So I think it's just this sort of tuning yourself to see the more beautiful part of life.
Yeah.
And I think that's an artist vision almost.
Yeah.
Or just, for me, it's just a way of seeing the world.
And you also said that you grew up in a household that had a lot of women in it, and like women in positions of, I wouldn't say power, but the dynamic was
I think the only way to
matriarchal.
describe the women in my family is ballsy. There's no other. I'm sorry for the non-woke version of it, but just like everybody held their own space. They were all very, very cool in their own rights. Everybody did some form of work. They all did some form of social service. They all had their own likes, dislikes, hobbies, things that they did outside of the home. And I think I grew up with this understanding that that's how women are. And they all still came back home, did whatever I had to do for the family. And I think that's been the fortunate bit of my upbringing, that I've never had to think twice about any of these things.
But was it ever challenged for you, like when you started working on your own, being a woman in business, in a wedding industry? Like, did you find that as a challenge anywhere?
I think yes, because weddings in India, even until recently, were very male dominated. So the labor on site wouldn't listen to me. And I had to walk up to them and think, they would look for like the next man around me to sort of listen to.
Unko samajh aayega.
Correct. Till I walked up and said, it is just me. My number 2 is also a woman. So who are you going to go to? And it's taken time for them to understand that I'm the one calling the shots. I'm the one making decisions. It's also so I think it's not the overt bit that gets to me. It's the under the table of, when are you having babies? How are you going to balance? I went to see an office for rent, and they're like, will you bring your husband with you? And I'm like, what for? He has
I got that too.
It's those things that catch me off guard. I don't think they rattle me or I think about them, but sometimes they just catch me off guard because I don't expect those statements or comments.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just sort of getting over those bits of things.
Yeah. I'm always asked this question. I always say that in India, luckily, design and fashion design is mostly a woman-dominated industry, in a sense that the karigars are kind of used to seeing women leading the show. So in that sense, I've never had the resistance. But like what you're saying, when I go out to rent an office space, or I go out, they always want to meet the man, or they want to know what my dad does and see his bank statements, or like, my husband and stuff like that. And use the right word. It's not that it rattles you, but it just surprises you, like, oh, like, because that's never a thought in your head. Like, you're complete in yourself and you're going in.
I remember we were hiring.
Yeah.
And this I loved her, loved everything. She said, you've been married for 6 years. Great for you. Hired her. She walked up to me on the first day of her job saying, you don't ask me when I'm getting pregnant. And I was like, that's because I didn't think of it. And she's like, yeah, but most companies ask me and I'm trying to get pregnant. And I was like, but that's great for you. I'm so happy for you. She's like, yeah, so I may need to take mat leave. And I was like, obviously, I mean, that kid won't like fall out just from the sky and like grown up already. Right?
Yeah.
And then everybody, it was just so funny because I was like, I didn't think of this, but I didn't realize it is such a big conversation in a workspace.
Yeah. No, it is. You
and
know,
I
and I'll be honest, it is for me also. Like that thought does come to me, like when I'm hiring or like my design head is about to have a baby, and I honestly panic because my work is so hands-on and you just have to be
Correct.
present, and it is impossible in this
But I think
massive
it's-
country to find
I just
talent.
assume that life still happens while we're at work, right? And life will continue to happen.
Yeah.
And, she's had a baby. She worked with us right till the very end. Within 1 month of having the baby, she's like, can I start working from home? Because this is killing me. I can't just be doing this for the rest of my life. And I think that's how I see all of these things.
No, I'll tell you why. It isn't so much to do with the woman who's pregnant, but it is to do with the people around her.
Yeah.
And a lot of girls who come into fashion design per se, come from privileged backgrounds where they've been told ki hobby ki tarah kar lo. You know, it's like,
Listen, I'm the champion of a lifestyle career. Okay,
Yeah.
you can't beat me. 'Cause
no, but you grew up in a very different world.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like when these girls have a baby, I mean, it'd be great if it just completely dependent on the girl. But it is like now my in-laws are saying now you don't need to go. Like in the 5th
True.
month, what is the need? Kyun jana hai? You know, that is where it gets really challenging for me to then be like, look, you want to have 6 babies, have 6 babies, because I know that you will show up. Like she's superb at managing work even remotely.
Yeah.
You know, there's absolutely no issue, but it is just everything that comes with it, like how much say the family has on your pregnancy and how to bring up a child and how much time you need to spend with them, and that is what gets challenging in an Indian setup.
True.
That is where definitely, like for me also, I would think that, oh my god, she'll get pregnant, you know, like, and it's unfortunate that you have to think like that. And I love that you said that it was not even a thought.
For me, I'm a sucker for ambition.
Yeah.
Even the slightest sort of spark of it, saying if you want to do something with us, we'll find a way to make it happen in whatever way. I would have made a crush for her in my office. Honestly.
Amazing.
But I'm just like, as long as you get shit done, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah. You know, you emphasize a lot on designing sustainable weddings. But when you just look at wedding, like there are 2 parts to it, right? The first part is that just weddings as a concept are usually seen as frivolous or just showmanship, or just, you know, there is so much of what you don't really need to do. Like, you know, there is excess. So how do you like make peace with that from a sustainability lens? Like how do you justify people spending that way on weddings and like so many flowers and so much like plastic, of course, is a part of it. That's one. And the second is that the country that we're in, where like more is less, again, how does sustainable design, like, because usually sustainable design is often seen as minimalistic, you know, which I don't agree with. But then I also see your work that it's not really minimalistic. There's so much going on. So I want to understand your definition of sustainability in respect to weddings, Indian weddings.
So I think my version of sustainability is not so narrow, and it's not just about the plastic and the bits. I think for me, my whole journey with sustainability has been about asking the right kind of questions. And I'll give you an example here. Every wedding that I do, everyone's like, oh, but you use so much flowers. I was like, yeah, but think of the industries and the growers I supported who have begun to grow in India. Those flowers your flowers grow in your garden and they decompose. They're 100% biodegradable. The right question is, should we not be using floral foam? Should we be finding other ways to do it? My whole idea on money is it belongs to the people who spend it, and it's their call on how they want to spend it. And I don't get into that conversation honestly at all, because they earned it, they get to spend it however they want to. The thing is, how can I give them more value and how can I be making the right kind of tweaks. So for example, what drives me completely bonkers is when 7-star hotels use plastic bottles. I was like, you can charge for the glass water bottle, you can afford to recycle it. If you build it in your pricing, everyone's going to pay it, right? Because it's not like I'm sweeping food into your hotel, I have to eat whatever you're feeding me. I think it's that mindset shift. I've circled around from saying my weddings are sustainable and we are going to try to find like more mindful ways to do things, to say a good design has to be sustainable today. Right, and it's that pivot in the last 5 years or the last 7 years where we were saying, how can we green out weddings? How can we find more like biodegradable ways? To me saying today, whatever we're doing has to be like that, right? We have to find solutions for it. Also, I think Indians, the idea of sustainability in India is very different. And it comes from the way we used to be. The idea that all of us used tin dabbas at home, right? All of us, literally your dads or husbands or whatever guy's shirt in the house becomes a gamcha first, it becomes a pocha first, dusting happens with it, it's recycled into like roti box or whatever else. I think the idea of recycle already exists for us. Most of what we use in weddings is rental furniture. It's all rental, so it's all going back, and there is a tremendous amount of reuse there. Whatever you're building finds a home later. Whatever new linen, the fact that you're encouraging industries, the fact that you're working with so many local artists and craftsmen, to me, that is as important as figuring out what is going to waste. Just the simple act of we recycle everything that's left over after wedding. And it's just built into our system. It's not something new that we're doing. It's not something that we're going to be talking about. For me, it's just part of our process. And I think that is what has changed for us in the last 7 years, is just this comprehension that whatever we make has to be thoughtful.
You said it very rightly, right? Like sustainability in India is very different from sustainability in probably like country just next door. Or definitely compared to Europe. Yeah, because I was listening to Bandana Tiwari, and I think she speaks beautifully on fashion and sustainability. And she said that, you know, somebody wearing organic cotton in Denmark is considered sustainable, but you just picture India and all Indians switching to organic cotton and how much water that would require for all of India to be just, we would run our rivers dry. You know, so it isn't sustainability in an Indian context. So in an Indian context, when you're talking about making your work sustainable, and I think very, very important to recognize that the artisans and the karigars that you work with and supporting them in the right way and getting them their dues is, for me, I think it is
correct.
Top of the pyramid.
And for us, sustainability is a part of our culture. It's not something that we need to learn. I grew up wearing my cousin's clothes. My clothes went to people. So this idea of waste doesn't exist. Whatever goes out of my home doesn't end up in a landfill immediately, right? My cousins wear it, my staff at home wear it, whoever fits into it wears it, right? And I think that's just one of the examples of how we are. It's just we're built like that. This note about water. So in 2019, we did an epic wedding in Jaipur where we grew our own food. We didn't use any plastic.
Wow.
In fact, some of the arrangements we made for that wedding still exist in the hotel over there because they all kept it. We worked with local craftsmen. Everything was sourced within 100 kilometers of the venue. I felt extremely cool about myself. And then 2020 lockdown happened and I decided to do a course on sustainability. And when I was doing the course, I realized that at no point did I calculate the amount of water it took to grow all those flowers and fruit from us. And I was like, oh God, I didn't even think of it. But the fact is, as long as it's a step in the right direction and you're sort of making the right choices, I think it's okay.
Coming to the second part, which is, do you think that sustainable weddings need to look minimalistic in the aesthetic?
Nothing needs to look minimalistic in aesthetic, sustainable or not.
Yeah. So how would you define how would you define your aesthetic?
Indian maximalist, but also thoughtful.
Thoughtful. Yeah, that's the word that was coming to my mind for you.
I think for me, I've also swapped out this sort of thing of just being more mindful and thoughtful. And that's all I aim to be in life and through my work. And just think through something before you do it and not just be in a rush to do it. And also think about why you're doing certain things.
Yeah. So I think what I'm taking away from this is that it isn't like a mission and a vision statement that you just set in stone and say, okay, my company's vision and mission statement is this. But it is like thinking every single day and every single moment of like asking the right questions.
And that's a journalism thing, and you'll know it.
Yeah.
The W's, right?
Yeah.
I was just saying, why are we doing this? Does this need to be done? And we ask the same questions from a design perspective as well when we're designing spaces. Seeing, does this flowers need to be there? Is it bringing something here?
Yeah.
And I think that literally of the whys of the questioning of everything has been my mantra through life.
In one of your interviews, I heard that we have multiple selves within ourselves, you know, like that very Western way of thinking of like, this is who I am, this is my purpose,
and
this is my identity.
In your 20s, you don't have your head from your bum.
Oh my God.
How will you know what to do? It's the same thing, right? When someone asking me, what did you want to be when you grew up? At 16, no one knows what they want to grow up.
Yeah.
And they almost never grow up to be what they want to grow up in 16.
If they're lucky.
Yeah, correct. If they're lucky. And some people, yeah, you're so right. Oh. But it's true, right? I think just think of your life as so when I started out, and this is a story, the first year I wanted to do everything, and I would constantly compare myself to companies who'd been doing this for decades and be like, why is this not coming to me? Till my husband physically like got hold of me and sat me down and said, you're 25, you're going to be working for at least another 35 years, if not 45 years. That's longer than your entire lifespan on planet Earth. Do you want to think about how you want to do this? And like, some things will just take time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been the best advice I've ever got, to understand that some things take time. 10 years later, I'm just like, oh, this is what they meant. It will take time. And now you're seeing the sort of other side of things because you did the drill for 10 years, right? But I think there's just comprehension that your life, fortunately today, is extremely long. And in your 20s, you've just begun.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'm 35 now. I easily have another 35 years of work. And the first 10 years of my life, I was figuring out basic shit like how to walk and talk and eat correctly, right?
Yeah.
Which means it's only uphill from here.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, this is tremendous. To just be able to look at your life as in that many, which means it's going to be 10 years for my company, which means in the next 30 years, I can have 3 different companies. I can be doing 3 completely different things, and I don't have to do the same thing always.
For me, it was very complex to understand, like fix my relationship with money and with work and with art and creativity. Because like for me...
that sucks if you're growing up in India, and as a woman in India, we don't talk about money at all.
Yeah.
It's always in hushed tones. To ask for money, God forbid.
Yeah.
And it took, I don't know what route it took you. It took me being absolutely shameless about it. I was just like, it's my money, give it to me. But like, and I remember when we hired our first few salespeople, they didn't know how to talk about money. Our biggest problem was collections. So just that conversation on money is so interesting.
But even now, I need to put men in those positions in my company to get the money.
Oh, women are much more better.
But I've had to do that. That's what I'm saying. Like in sales, where it is about money, I've had to put men there because women, as you correctly said, like we don't know how to talk about it.
And as an artist, this whole concept of the starving artist, one tight slap, I want money, give me money.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like these words, I felt like they were mutually exclusive, right? Like how can I say I'm an artist at the same time say I'm doing it, like I want my business to be profitable? Like, oh, like business. Like how can you use even like the word business in art and like creativity? So it took all of my 20s and I think another 5 years into my 30s to understand ki nahi yaar, like you're doing business, ultimately it needs to be profitable for you to be able to put anything back in to create art, right? Like art also requires money. You know, it took me so long to kind of get to that point. So what do you think, like how should women, I mean, or like even artists approach that relationship with money? It's not to say that it's my money, I deserve it, but just
I think the first bit, Shubhika, comes with this understanding that they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And that you need one to fuel the other. I think most of us live in this oblivion of, I can't believe the number of people who apply to us saying, we don't want to apply for the money. But you should be applying for the money.
Yeah.
I remember my first job, my parents had trained me saying, if they'd offer you 10,000, take the job. Okay. I walked in and they said, we will pay you 14,000 rupees. I was like, take my soul. I was like, that is a lot more than what I was told. But the thing is, we're not taught how to handle money as youngsters, which is why they're sort of looking down on money or the idea of making money. and it only comes to you much later in life. So I think the first bit is sort of this aligning yourself to, hey, you have to pay rent. And a lot of people who don't live with their parents understand it, because your ass is on fire, because you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your bills. And I think that's I was so lucky that it happened to me so early in my life, where I'm just like, I don't want to be taking money from my parents. I want to be making my own sort of thing. I want to be more independent. And I think that is step number one. And the step number two is figuring out what you want with it.
It's taking me back to when you and I worked on my campaign.
Yeah.
And I remember that there was like this massive bill that came to us, like before we shot it, like, okay, painting the and I was just sitting there and I was like, I can't, because people think fashion folks have so much money because they have huge margins. Bullshit, because literally before every campaign we're just begging, like, will you do this for me, will you and I remember you weren't able to be there on all the calls because there was a wedding or something like that, but you came on one call and you said, see, Shubhika, I feel like this is a little extra, like I'm going to cut this out, you don't need this, you don't need that, and you just really sorted me out, like in the 5 minutes that you gave me.
I think we're taught to look at money from a very emotional perspective. Money is a very emotional conversation. For me, I've taught myself to make it a practical conversation, and also in India, this whole thing of, but he has money, he can spend it. And I belong to an industry where it's like, uske paas paisa nahi hai kya? But that's not the point, right? You choose where you spend your money or what you spend your money on. And for me, I'm just like, all money is hard-earned money. So the minute you start looking at it practically and not make it this emotional conversation of can he spend, should he want to spend, you are there to find a solution.
Very, very well put. Yeah.
And I think that is important. And this whole thing of talking about money is because we're also emotional about it, also guilty about it. Right? It either comes from a perspective of being guilt, like you are saying, I didn't have some money to spend.
Yeah.
That's not how I saw it. I was like, it's hard-earned money. It's cheaper to like paint a whole building with it, right? Do we need it? We don't need it. And that's a practical approach to it. It's not like we must spend X amount of money. So, for example, and it's a very odd business decision we made. When we started working, there was no concept of design fee. Everybody said this wedding will happen for X crores or X lakhs. Okay, and I was just like, what a shit way. Firstly, I suck at math. So I was like, this is not going to work for me at all, because I can tell you your shoot will be for whatever, 5 rupees or 10 rupees. But how the hell do I figure the back end of it? And how can I be reliant? If my business model is based on a percentage of what you spend, then how am I ever going to be honest to you? Right? So we had to educate people about design fee. And I was like, architects take it. And that was a great example. I was like, lawyers take it, right? And that's always other industries I've looked at for like there is no model for wedding companies.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't exist. So I've always looked at like architecture practices, increasingly film now, fashion, which is beginning to get organized, law firms to say, how do you price yourself, how do you do different things? And I realized, and I was like, we will start charging fees. And I remember for the first 2 years when we started putting this fee, everyone's like, what is this? And I had to explain it to them. One of the first few weddings I did, who didn't want to pay my fee, I actually returned money to him at the end of the wedding. It was, I think, $50,000 or something. And he's like, why are you returning this? I said, because I saved it. And I was like, I want you to understand why I charged you a fee and why I said everything is as per actuals, because when I save the money, it's your money to save. And he's like, it's really funny because no one's ever done this. I said, but I want you to understand my model of working. We've done 6 weddings in that family. Wow. And they understand what we do. And I was just like, it's just that small thing of, we're looking to save for you. We're on your side of the table.
Okay, so going back to how it all started, you did you worked in Delhi, if I'm not mistaken.
For 4.5 years.
At a wedding planning firm, or what was it called?
There was no division back then. It was all planned. It was everything. Whatever came at us, we did it.
Like band baja bride, only different. Like
yeah, just without the dancing.
Without the dancing and without the love story.
No, the love stories were there. Without the dancing.
Without the dancing. Okay, very specific. Okay, without dancing. So from there, you moved on to. You took the decision to start your own company, but with a difference.
I quit to do film sets.
Oh, okay.
And then I decided, and I had a friend who did films, and she's like, I just side pick kind of thing. And I was just like, but I don't want to serve chai on site. I was like, I've worked a bit to not do it. And then the next month's rent was due, and I was like, okay, how about we do a little bit of what we're used to doing? Because by then I wasn't used to asking for money.
Right.
So I started doing a couple of freelance gigs. the one thing I chose not to do was live the freelance life. I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it under my own name. I'm going to do it as a proper sort of operation and not just roll with it because I want
Freelance
to.
as a wedding design, wedding planner.
Wedding designer. So I hate the planning component of things. And the day I quit and wanted to do anything on my own, I was just like, I will only design. And back then there was no differentiation. So I used to have an Excel sheet saying, this is what a planner does. This is what a designer does. I'll be doing this and we'll get someone to do the rest of it.
Right. So how did you make that decision? Because that was a ballsy move,
because I
right?
hated it. And I was like,
how did you know that clients would sign up to that?
I didn't. I think the first year was just a series of experiments. So I think the first 3 years was just a series of experiments and what works and what doesn't work and what we're okay with doing and what we're not okay with doing. And back then you didn't have the chance to say so many no's, right? Because you had to say yes. So I think what was great was because we said yes, every project was a learning curve. I think it was one of the most epic times in my life, and I can't wait to be there again to start something new and be there, because you were just learning from every single mistake that you were making. The first project I did, I think my fee was 25,000 rupees. Guys, my rent was 30,000 rupees back then. And the decor was meant to stay there for one night. They kept it for 5 days because I didn't know how to speak to them and hold my ground. And I came back and I was like, never again. I wrote this down. I wrote terms of working with me. I put a contract down. I Googled saying, what do contracts look like? What do other company contracts look like? And made a very cursory contract. And I remember going for the first few meetings, no one was signing contracts back then. And everyone's like, we are not signing this. I was like, you will sign this. That is my only term to work, is that you will put, there's no way that contract would hold in court, but the fact is that we were both answerable to each other. And I think that's what was important. And just have the sense of, is just making those mistakes and learning from them.
Okay, you quit your job. You came to Bombay to work on film sets. You had a friend.
No, I wanted to.
You wanted to.
I decided.
But then you were like,
this is not going to happen for me.
And your rent was due, which
my
was what,
rent
30K?
I quit on Jan 31st. Feb, I came to Bombay. Feb 10th, I had a ticket back, went back, had boyfriend here, so very nice, had a place to stay. Went back because home was in Delhi. 20th Feb, I woke up and I was like, there's not enough money in my bank to sleep for one more month. And back then, by the way, through the first year of my trying to be on my own, I would wake up every day in the morning, check my bank balance. If there was enough, I would roll over and sleep. If there was more, I would like, okay, let's get out of bed and work today because we have to work today. 25th Feb, I got a call saying, what are you up to? And I'm just like, nothing. I'm trying to figure out what to do in my life. We have a project. They're looking for a designer. This was an old florist of mine. Will you come and help me? You want someone to speak to the client? Stuff like that. I was like, sure. Will you pay my rent? Which was like, I had 5,000 in my account. I was like, I need 25,000 more. Will that be my fee? He's like, yeah, we'll pay it, whatever. Went to Ghaziabad at my uncle's house, did some basic stuff for him. He wanted, I have photos of it. I'm just like,
you have
always
to, you
amazed.
Have to share them with
I will
us.
Totally share them. Every time someone says, yeah, but we don't have budgets, I was like, neither did I. Anyhow, gentleman kept that decor for 5 days, didn't pay, and I was just like, what is this madness? And then after that wedding, I was like, this is the only thing I know how to do. It'd be foolish of me to not do it because I truly love it, just to go and chase something else that could be something. And back then, it was very interesting that back then I had the foresight of figuring this out. There's only two ways to do new things. Either you do multiple and you start at the bottom rung of it, or you become really good at what you do and then there's one equalizer there. So like today, like you call me to do your set. It's not what I do, right? But it's just getting that vision through. I do a lot of sets. I do shoots. We do homes. We do kids things. It's all like equalized. So I was like, maybe this is the better way for me to go because at least I won't have to serve chai on set. So I came back. Fortunately, there were a lot of kind people who came my way who were just like, we have a little wedding. It's a small project. Will you take it up? I was like, yes. I think in the first day I did 3 weddings. That's it. But because I was only doing 3 weddings, I put my heart and soul into those 3 weddings. I did all of those 3 weddings, I was doing planning for 2 of those weddings as well. I remember back then there was this family I was doing a wedding for. I used to go to their home every day at 10 in the morning, leave every night at 9 o'clock, come back home, make the changes, go back at 10 in the morning and we'd change everything. And I did that exactly for like 6 months. I was planning a 70 people wedding in December, from March to December. It's now going to be 10 years to this year. all I did was plan. It was a perfect wedding, obviously, because I had like 10 months to just do that one thing.
So at what point did you decide to then hire a team? And
I didn't that whole year. I was doing it myself. For site, I hired a couple of freelancers who I knew freelance for the previous company. Just found them, come help me. Ex-colleagues, come help me. Burnt my finger with partnerships. I was like, I am not meant to work with other people.
Yeah.
Better sense prevailed. We weren't in a rush. We also had no money to start companies, right? So we just like, let's do this project together.
Yeah.
Didn't work well. Okay, we're never working together again. That kind of thing. It was only the year after that when I had some work to put on my Instagram back then, that I started getting more work, or more people from my previous circle started seeing what I was doing and said, we have a friend getting married. We've heard you're doing this. Can we do something together? That sort of thing. But I think it took 2 years to hire my first few people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the next summer that I actually hired full-time team members to be with me, which is those 3 people on my dining table.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I love how you said that the first call that you got was from your florist. So like your networking actually happens everywhere. And then when did you move to Bombay?
I got married and you had to come and live with your husband or some crap like that, which is why I moved to Bombay. Throughout the first year of being married, we actually lived in separate cities. But then I was going mad just trying to make office work and trying to like shuttle up and down between cities, which is why I moved to Bombay, which was the best decision ever.
Yeah, you say that. Why?
Yeah. I think
now you can deal with the city.
Yeah, I think you have to find out. I think the city. I love that Bombay stuff on you because it lets you grow with it.
Yeah,
and it filters out people who are not meant for the hustle life. Simple.
Yeah.
I love the work culture here. I love how no nonsense everyone is over here. I love how everyone just gets on with their own business and minds their own business, because that's exactly the kind of person I am. I have no time for frivolousness. I'm just like, come on, if I have free time, I'd rather be home.
So then when did you decide to then expand your team? How did you go about doing it? Like what kind of people you wanted to hire? Like how did you have that clarity of how and when to take the next step?
Everything we've done has come out of need. So we started expanding from there because I was just sick of people coming and I couldn't take a sick day home. So I was like, maybe we need to get an office.
Yeah.
But thank God for Delhi rent, so we could get an office back then. So we got literally a room the size of what we're sitting in. That was my first office. And I was like, wait a minute. So then problems started cropping up, right? And I think I have 2 roles in my company. One is, of course, the design portion and the vision. And the second is like literally I call myself a mechanic, saying if oil is leaking, what can I do to like tap in or tape that oil bit of it, right? So I was like, okay, we need someone to do rendering for us. We need someone to answer client calls, because back then the most common complaint was you don't have time to answer calls. Obviously, I'm on site dealing with something. I can't be hiring answer calls. So I was like, okay, let's get a business manager to answer the calls. Sat the business manager, literally made them memorize like school, saying this is what you say. FAQs. This is what you say when a client calls. This is when they say this, you say this. The first few calls I was taking myself sitting on the corner being like, don't say this, right? Made myself an email ID called whatever, accounts or whatever, which I was handling. There was no accounts department handling. But I was just like, maybe this looks more professional than coming from me. I think the most brilliant thing I did was separate myself from sales right at the very beginning, because it gave me more perspective in my own business and gave me time to focus on the things that needed focusing, which was sort of making better designs, having better relationships with people I'm working with. So I think that was my first hire. Then we figured we needed a lot more designers in-house. So we started getting someone who would specialize in the 3D portions of it, because then sort of things started growing, right? When team grows, then you were like, okay, maybe I should be charging more fees. Now at more fees, people are like, will you be showing us renders? And I was like, oh God, now we'll have to show renders. Let's hire a person who will make the renders for us. I think that's how that first sort of growth spurt happened, of finding myself in that office and getting sort of new people there. We were there for about 2 years. And then I had to move to Bombay, which meant I had to give up that whole team and hire brand new in Bombay, because I think I don't think it's easy for everyone to move cities. And I think it's completely
especially
fair.
to a city like Bombay. It's expensive.
Correct, which is expensive, which is far. So I moved to Bombay, found myself a little office in here, started hiring for Bombay. Again, the team was still largely business managers. Then I realized we need maybe more business managers, need more designers. So I started getting like more people to sort of be at the job. I think that's when I realized that we needed a little more conviction with what we do and a little more direction. So literally sat wrote down where we want to be, basic goals, check posts, whose job profiles. There was no job descriptions back then. Everyone did whatever came for you. So we were cleaning office also, we were answering calls also, we were doing production also.
Yeah.
A lot of other cool non-wedding work started coming to us back then also, to just like do birthday parties, do small occasions. And we said, let's see what works for us. Took us a year to figure out we suck at it and we can't do all of it together. And then the next sort of place that came in was, I think 2 years ago, I realized, I was like, we need production people. Our designers can't be designing and doing production. So we've had new roles that were made. We've literally had a new role being made in our company every other month in the last 1 year, because I'm just like, we need to get someone here, we need to get someone there. And I feel like that's a great way to grow your company.
Yeah.
Often we're in the hustle of we have to do bigger.
Yeah,
I feel like,
because now it's all about optics, right?
correct. And I have to hold myself back. I'm dying to move into a giant office, and then like today morning, I'm just like, maybe not. Let's see what we need. And I feel like it's a much more softer way to grow your business. But I hope
And a
10 years
sustainable
down,
way.
I was going to say, I hope 10 years down, I can tell you it's a more sustainable way of growing a business.
Yeah, I think it is from experience. And often creative people or artists, people don't really realize how much technical stuff really goes into it. I was listening to your interview and you said that a lot of my team members are architects and interior designers who really know like where the switch goes, how to make it work, and how to put up a tent and how to balance stuff. Like, it's the same with me. Like in my company, I feel like my design team is one of the smartest bunch of girls and people I know in the whole company put together. Like you could be an MBA, but you won't be able to problem solve the way these girls can. So I always look for people who have also like very technically sound skills when it comes to
I'll tell you
design.
something else about it. Anyone who's been to design school knows how to put in the hours, because they've all sat at night and done like cut over something or build something over a night. And I think that is also important to know, to put in the hours over there.
Things of beauty need effort and time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like it on the gram anymore, but it really does. And I think that, at least for me, I'm struggling with the Gen Z generation because of that, because like everybody needs quick answers, quick raises, quick promotions, and this term that I don't know how it came into existence called work-life balance.
Oh, I want to cry.
And like those kind of things that have come into like the vocabulary at work.
So I have the same problems as you, by the way, and I know a lot of us do. And I'm at a bit of a crossroads, because I'm all about choosing what you want first. So I don't want to be the millennial who's saying, what do Gen Zs want? Because I have sat in enough conferences and meetings saying, what does the millennial bride want?
Yeah.
So I really want to be with it.
Yeah.
It's really doing a shitty job at it, but I want to be with it. So a portion of my brain appreciates that you get to choose, or you want to do better. I'm waiting to see the other side of it, because I want to see Gen Z at 30 and see what they've done. Does that make sense?
It does.
And for me, it's like I said, a thing of curiosity.
Yeah.
Right? I want to see how it goes, because maybe our way was not the right way. I mean, who knows? Like maybe we were foolish that we were just working from 9 to 5. We have like, now we're all in our 30s. It's just like, okay, health is a thing, right? Like backs are breaking, stuff like that. It's like maybe we didn't need to do all of that. But I want to see where it winds up at 30. The one thing I do know for certain is that there is no shortcut to hard work.
Yeah. And that's why I say, as you're saying choice, right? Like it is, I tell people it honestly is a choice. Like today you want to be a CEO, a founder, you want to be in like the US, you want to have runway shows, it's going to require the work. I mean, it can't coexist like that, right? Like you can't use terms like work-life balance and then still say, oh, but those are my ambitions.
You know what my other greatest enemy is? Work from home.
Yeah.
You have to know something to work from home. Now, what are you working on? Also, all business. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but no matter what industry you're in today, you're doing the hours.
Yeah.
Even teachers are doing the hours today, like which was like the most chill of all professions with summer holidays. I have an aunt who's a teacher, and God, she works ridiculous hours.
Yeah.
Right. you have to work with other people today. Nobody is, unless you are a painter or an artist who is making your own product. I think even they have to work with other people because they have to sell their product now, right? You can't just be sitting in a little villa somewhere in the south of France making your own thing. Those days have gone. You have to work with other people. And I think which is why this whole idea of work from home doesn't work entirely, because you have to get out there. There has to be sort of collaboration. There has to be a refurb of what you do.
100%.
And I feel like we're all working in our little bubbles where no one's challenging or questioning our work. There's no competition. And I feel like we have that. We have that competition of, hey, what is he doing? It doesn't have to be, competition's a good thing also, right?
100%.
Or just looking for someone saying, shoulder saying, oh, you did that. Okay, when I need to do that, right?
Yeah.
It's a healthy bit of it. And I feel like that's integral to coming to work, doing the hours, meeting other people who are giving you honest feedback on what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's the other thing Instagram has done. Everyone's giving you thumbs up. No one's giving you feedback, right? Like, I get very upset when my mom's like, that table didn't look nice. I was like, I don't care. But like, the fact is you should care, right?
Yeah.
You should. There's no critique anymore. It's either hate or a thumbs up.
Yeah. Either you're cancelled or you're put on a pedestal.
Correct.
Like
There's no critique of this is nice, this is not nice. And I feel like that's extremely important to be anybody today, is to have some sort of perspective in what you do.
I agree. Like, I tell people that my brand was built on Instagram. And in saying that, I say that I managed my own brand Instagram for like 10 years. And that has actually, when I say community, I just don't mean people who are like patrons or lovers or, people who buy from us, but actually people who used to like DM me and leave messages, and I used to have conversations with them. Like, a lot of when I used to use like white models and like just skinny models, or I always talk about this. There was this, I opened this beautiful factory and it was all white. It was in a business park, and like shiny new machines and karigar sitting there, and I so proudly put up a story, and somebody DMs me saying, oh, I don't see any AC vents, you're making them sit in just fans. At first I was like, what the hell, like, go and see how the designers make them work and all of that, like, look at how beautiful it is. And then, like, after 5-6 days, I went back to my team and I said, I think we need to put in ACs. So who you take feedback from is really important, but taking feedback is actually really, it can help you grow. Why else do you put yourself out there? But the only difference is you have to know what the source is. Like, are they saying it with the right intentions? Is that good? Like, as you said, the why of it, like, and will it help me grow? Will it help me be better? Are they doing this to help me evolve? Like, I'm feeling uncomfortable now because I know inside me it's something I need to change. That's what you're saying. Like, it's very important to be in an office setup. It is not us, like, companies being cruel.
What you said earlier also, no? It's just comfort and boredom. You need both, and you will have those only if you walk into office every morning, sit,
discipline, routine,
correct,
things that feel absolutely like, what, I have to do it again. But that is what actually gives you
but then that's what I'm saying. Put it in perspective. 45 years, what are you going to do?
Correct. What are you going to do next?
So my goal is that I want to design cities.
Wow.
I don't know how to get there.
Like, in the sky, or like in the middle of the ocean?
So
or like...
I went to Copenhagen 5 years ago. And so I'm a huge believer that the spaces you inhabit affect your mood. And I'm a bit delulu, as the new kids say, but I feel like...
No, it's no longer a cool term.
Oh shit, sorry, please cut
it's
that
gone.
out.
It's passé.
Fine, then I'm delusional, like old school. Where I feel like public sentiment, hopes, dreams, everything can be defined by spaces. And I feel like the citizens of that part of the world are happier because of the way they live. And I want to try and bring that to India. Imagine if you had walked through a passage of flowers, or you had like a lovely pavement, or you had a really cool bus stand you crossed. Your buses were air conditioned, just like basic systems. It definitely impacts the way people work, the way people think, what they want to do with themselves. I feel like design in general is not a thought process in India.
We don't have the luxury for it. Like,
but that's
we've not had
true.
it.
We have.
We have had it really long ago.
We had it when I was a kid.
You did?
Which is not so long ago, let's be real. What we've done in the last 15 years is we've tried to ape this mythical West and forgotten it and become, I don't know what. when I started traveling, I was like, weren't we supposed to look like Paris? Paris does not look like this. Why does my city look like this? I think is just a sort of going back to finding beauty and art in every day, because we are the pioneers of it. I think it's just sort of, and it is a cycle. So I hope we come back to it. I hope
we are
come back
definitely
to
pioneers
it quickly.
of it. So how are you doing that through your work? You know, I know that you're working with a lot of, whenever you plan a wedding, you work with a lot of local artists, and just tell me more about that.
I think so. It started with wanting to create more unique spaces, and we were doing a lot of destination weddings there. And I was like, let's see what's available here. Just like incorporate a local craft, a local sort of pattern. It went to beginning to sort of work with local weavers and artists over there. That sort of came into the work. But I think it also circles back to me finding beauty in everyday and making the everyday beautiful. So I think just sort of bringing that philosophy in, saying maybe a venue is enough. We don't have to create something outlandish here because your space is enough. Or seeing what are the cultures of that space that you can bring into a design. I think all of those are thought processes we've sort of discovered and developed.
So what are the pros and cons that you experienced of working with local artists? Because I'm guessing a lot of them don't have the exposure of creating things at scale, at speed.
I think the pros are definitely being able to get something which is more interesting and unique. The cons are not so much of exposure and speed so much as just unpredictability. You work with karigars enough. So there was this gentleman in Pokhran who only made elephants. His whole shop has elephants. I gave him an order of 100 elephants. When I went to
made
pick
out of
them
what?
up, clay, mitti ke. And I told him to paint them hot pink. I gave him the shade. He's like, yeah, I'll paint them hot pink. When I went to pick them up, there were 50 elephants and 50 ghodas. I was like, sir, aapne ghoda, why have you made a ghoda? He's like, madam, I thought it's for a wedding, so I'll make you a ghoda. I said, have you ever made a ghoda before this? His wife is sitting there and cracking up with me because I'm just like, you've never made a horse before. Why have you made a horse? He's like, I just felt like it, so I made you horses. And I'm just like, buddy, this makes no sense. Why would you do this? And wife is cracking up saying he thinks he's over smart. I told him to listen to you. My whole decor was about your pink elephants.
Yeah.
And of course, I took the ghodas and I used them, but it's the unpredictability.
So how do you deal with that? Say, you know,
I think you embrace it. Like a lot of... So I'll tell you why I'm obsessed so much with craft is that because I can't do anything with my own hands. I can't even tie a bow, which is why I'm an absolute awe of anybody who can make anything with their own hands. And I think the most beautiful thing about making with hands is the imperfection and the unpredictability of it. And I'm just like, for my own sanity, it's just better for me to embrace it and make it part of it. I remember we were once making a print which was just supposed to be straight lines and it was supposed to be blocked. And I drove everybody mad saying, I want imperfect lines. I don't want straight lines because when you make by hand, you can't make straight lines. And I think that is art also. Is just sort of embracing that imperfection, this one kali which is slightly teda, because that is the mark of making by hand. And we've forgotten that. My most epic moment was we were in Banaras sourcing, I think, for my own wedding. And I've been to Banaras before. I know how Banarsi sarees are made. I know how they're woven and stuff. But I went to this and it's so mainstream there that you find it like every like alternate shop you go there. But I climbed into this one shop over there and this lady came and she put on and I'm always in a hurry. So I was just like, come on, show me what you have. And she's like, wait, sit, have chai, have biscuits. Then she took out gloves from a box. She opened every sari like it was an art piece, holding it from two ends, showing me every sari one by one till I gave her feedback on that sari. And that's what I meant by Therav. That's what we've forgotten is just, that's when I took a step back and I was like, everything here is a piece of art. And that's why fashion blows my mind. Because I'm just like, everything you're wearing. So I've had this whole thing of so many hands made this. Because I'm amazed at how many people it takes to make something. We just did a wedding and my team has a joke going because they're like, every cushion, 5 different people made. It was in 5 different cities because it was happening at such short time. Like, it was printed somewhere, somebody else embroidered it, somebody else stitched it, it came in a 5th city to be put. But I think I find that so interesting that it passes through so many hands to become something.
Stunning decor, flashing cameras, and you looking like $1 million. Now imagine going through an entire wedding looking so gorgeous on the outside, but sweaty and uncomfortable on the inside. Well, now you don't have to. Nipposh has come up with these incredible nipple stickies, which are non-adhesive, which means no glue. It literally sticks to your body with body heat, and that's it. Zero sticky situation. decoration, perfect for all-day comfort and confidence. So tell me about how you think the wedding industry has changed or evolved.
So I'll give you a spectrum of the last sort of 10 years. 10 years ago, it was all about the showmanship, grandeur, and there was this sort of pivot towards a more personal wedding, wanting smaller guests, things like that. Maybe we don't have to have so many people. COVID had that whole sustainability change of like people being more conscious. What can we do? What can we do better? Questioning, not going for the international wedding, choosing value over everything else. And I think we're at the cusp now. And I'm waiting to see where it's going to turn to, because I think the 2000 born kids are beginning to get married now. And I'm excited to see what they care about. I know the thing is their parents are getting them married still for the next 5-6 years. So, but already there's a lot more focus on activities, on experiences, on just seeing their weddings like holidays or like family get-togethers. They don't care for larger families. They want it to be fun. They don't even want it to be about themselves. They want it to be about the experience of what are we doing together. The number of concerts, the number of cruises, the number of experience-based weddings that are happening now. And I'm very excited because I feel like we're at the cusp to see what is the next big thing. And I'm very interested to see what the 2000 born...
Can you predict something like a trend that'll happen?
I think it's definitely this whole experience shift. This whole thing of focus on bride and groom is gone. The brides don't want to enter with chadars anymore. They just get on with it. We want to be with our friends. We want to be enjoying more. And I love that for them, actually. It's a great sort of this non-attention seeking shift that's happening. And I'm all for like enjoying your own wedding, partying with everybody, doing your own barat, questioning what's happening. I think it's a very cool place to be.
So do you have kind of a nostalgia for how things were, where parents were more involved, or like you're very happy with where it's at right now?
I like change. So I'm excited to see what's coming up.
Right.
I'm nervous to see if we will evolve with it.
Yeah. Will you be relevant?
Correct. And also evolution, right? Like, will we evolve with it? Will we understand it? Are we looking at the right things? Sort of questions any sort of business on their 10-year, 15-year mark is sort of now asking them. Anyone in their mid-30s is asking themselves because, but I'm excited to see what is on the other end.
Is that a concern? Like, will we be relevant? Like, there's so much stuff you see online now and everybody is doing great work.
I think the hope is that we are relevant, but I also understand the cycles to life and we will stop being relevant and then be relevant again. And I think that's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But is there like, do you have like a big meeting where you're like, okay, we need to do this kind of a project? Like, are there strategic decisions that you're making in like how you manage the perception of your company, or what are the internal conversations?
I think sometimes, but not like truly focused on this as yet, but just seeing what people want more of. So we started doing a lot more for kids, by the way, which is interesting because you realize that a lot of our clients now have kids, and what can we be doing for them? What can we be doing for other people? And I don't think in terms of brand perception yet, but just I think from an understanding perception right now.
So how many weddings do you end up doing in a year now?
I think we're at about 15 weddings a year.
15.
And we wanted to decrease, not increase.
Right.
I think though it's not just the weddings, it's all the other stuff we also do right now. We do a lot of shows, we do a lot of small luxury events, and that also is a separate business that we're now beginning to see as a separate vertical.
Right. We had Vishal Punjabi, the wedding filmer, just last week, and he said that the first people that the bride and groom book, one of the first people are the wedding videographers and photographers to lock their dates in. Like, how soon in that process do they book you?
I think about 6 months to a year in advance, easy.
Right. And how long from the time you meet the bride and groom or the family to the wedding? Like, what is the time period and what do you use that for?
So the shortest we've ever had has been 3 months. But the thing is, it takes a lot more time to design because like a makeup artist, a videographer, photographer turns up on that day, right? Our work is all before the wedding. Yeah. So the more time we have before a wedding, the more helpful it is for us because that's when we spend a lot of time doing research, putting design decks together. There's a lot of like, we like this, we don't like this. Budgets come into play. So I think the more time we have before, the better it is for us.
Right. Okay. So what does a wedding designer do?
I'll pass on my Excel sheet to you.
Yeah.
But in very simple terms, we take care of aesthetics, how things look and how things feel and the experience of it. So it covers...
And you are saying that it should take 6 months for you to arrive at the final design.
Easily.
Yeah. Okay, so
Because
there's
I'll
a lot
tell
of
you,
back and forth. How do you
more than
incorporate?
the back and forth, I think the first, so you know how most other decks you walk in for design meetings, they come with ideas. As a philosophy, we don't walk into a meeting with an idea. We walk into a meeting to get a sense of what everyone wants. So it's like an absorbing session of what do you want? What are we catching on? Then we come back and begin working on those details. A lot of research goes in at that point. Literature background, journalism background, like literally like companies built around that. So just like figuring out culture of the places, venues, family history, where families came from. A lot of our couples have really incredible stories. How can we sort of put them together? So that's the other sort of major chunk of the planning process is the research and sort of R&D bit of it. Things we want to do in our future projects also, like what new materials we want to play with. We went through this whole thing of we want to do away with trussing and create like bamboo structures. So we had to figure out how to work with bamboo, find people to work with it, things like that. Then we go into like a like-hate, what start presenting to the family. They pick and choose. Sometimes they're quick. Sometimes it takes some time to arrive at decisions. Then we go to budgeting, which is where a whole lot of back and forth happens again, saying can do, can't do, let's filter this, things like that. Then to sampling, which is the other bit, because just because something looks good on a computer doesn't mean it looks good in real life. So it goes through a whole round of sampling and then execution.
Wow. Okay.
So it's ideally every bit of the step takes a month each.
And how much time do you get at the wedding to like turn around
So I think
sets?
at the wedding, we're all just firefighting. Everything is there, we're placing it. There's no, I like everything's thought through. I'm not the kind of artist who's just like, let's order 10 things and see where they go. I like to know where things are going ahead of time, because when we're there, we're mostly only actioning it or sort of responding to certain things. I don't know, when you got rained out, stuff like that, which happens to us all the time.
What all happens at venues?
Oh, everything. I can write a book on it.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you a few quick things. My venues got washed out. The groom has been missing.
Groom is missing. I want to know where you found him.
The lunch tent caught fire.
Oh, shit.
Floral arrangement caught fire. Parents of the bride and groom have had a fight, and this is just like a day in my life. Things haven't turned up on site. There have been riots. There have been just...
So what do you do? Like, okay, so there's a cyclone or like a venue.
Backup plans.
What is the backup then? Like
There
you're
has to be
working, say, in a remote area or like a farmhouse.
Then either make a hangar and you preempt it, or you have an indoor space, or you hold guests off and then they come once it's gone.
Wow.
I once had parents inside a whole wedding in Mauritius inside a hangar, and had someone from the government with a little scale that was saying if it exceeds X amount of wind, then we have to dismantle this whole tent because it's not safe to be here. And everyone in the tent was having the time of their life. They're like, oh, what lovely weather. And I was like, guys, I'm panicking.
Yeah.
What is
Watching the
happening?
scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I say, right? Like we did a wedding in Bahrain, which is in the middle of the desert, and it poured so much that we had to shut the electricals because all the wires got flooded. I had candles in the whole venue. The place looked absolutely magical. People started playing Antakshri.
These are the
food
kind of
was
things you see in
open.
movies.
I can write a book on what to do when planning doesn't work out.
Yeah. I think you
Literally.
should.
It is. And I think at that, nothing prepares you for this. People ask me all the time, should people go to colleges to learn this? And I was like, how can you possibly learn to act and think on your feet?
Yeah.
I think that only comes with experience and a sort of calmness. I am horrible in daily situations, but throw me in a panicky situation and my brain thinks in A, B,
Same,
C,
yeah.
D by like point, and I was like, this is what you do.
Yeah.
I was built for like a war scenario to like deal with situations. And I think that's just it. Just have enough backup plans, be able to preempt what could possibly go wrong.
Yeah.
I remember once we were working with a new partner, and my team, they spoke to him on the phone, they sent him the money, and I looked at her and I was like, do you know where his office is or where his godown or something? And she's like, no. I said, do you have an address? I said, no. I was like, so you paid him so much money, if he switches off his phone and never turns up again, what will you do? You had this the panic on her face. She's like, what? I was like, but
It
that's liable
happens,
to happen,
yeah.
right? And she's just like, why do you even think of these things? I said, because it's important to think of these because you can preempt and plan for it.
Yeah.
Most people don't plan for the worst case scenario because they think it's morbid.
Yeah.
But it's the worst case scenario can happen, right? The odds of it
100%.
are more likely to happen than
I
not.
fully agree.
And I'm a huge planner of like planning for the worst case scenario, because once you've planned for it, then you know what to go into. If it
Yeah.
doesn't happen, great.
It's interesting that you said you're an optimist. You are Delulu, which is now delusional.
Yes.
But at the same time, you consider the worst case scenario. So I feel like you're taking your magic and you're adding practicality
You have
to
to
it.
be, of course.
Yeah, instead of the
And
other
you
way
have to
around.
be able to see both.
Yeah, because many truths coexist. I've
course.
learned that once I've aged. Very important.
of
Like
course.
multiple truths coexist. So you have worked on some of the biggest weddings, and some in scale, and some of course because of the names attached to it. So be it Virat and Anushka, and what a moment that is, like, and now the Ambani pre-wedding celebrations and things like that. What is the kind of prep that you need to do for something like this? Because there's a lot of secrecy involved. There's a lot of like destinations involved, remote destinations. There's a cruise for the Ambanis that you did. Like, how different is the prep, the team size for taking on these kind of events?
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same amount of pressure. And that's one of the things I consciously put down on a piece of paper and said, every bride and groom of mine need to feel like Anushka Virat.
Wow.
Because that's the whole point of doing 10 weddings a year, right? Like, if everybody is not given the same attention to detail, then you can't sustain a business. And that's just how we work. It's the same process. It's the same fee. It's the same team across the board.
Wow.
And that's how businesses are built, right? You don't decide how to charge, how to treat someone depending on who walks through the door. Like, just because a celeb walks in through a door versus someone from, I don't know, Bhatinda walking through a door, you're not going to treat them differently, right? They have the same power, they are putting the same amount of trust in you.
Yeah. And it's a big day.
Correct. And they're trusting you with something mindlessly. And to me, that bothers me a lot more. It's that I sent a letter to my first ever client the other week, and I was just like, how did you put so much trust in me? Like, I am not so trusting. Like, what came over you? And they were just like, this is the funniest email we've ever got. But I was just like, it's true, right? Like, you're putting so much. I think that trust in me bothers me more than who's trusting me with it.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. Yeah.
And also, like, it's something you're looking forward to. It's something you can't change later.
Yeah.
So, and you are constantly thinking of what can you do to make it better for them.
Yeah. So what do you feel once a wedding is done and it's successful? Like, what is the feeling after that?
I think there's a tremendous adrenaline high for the next 4-5 days or whatever, week or whatever else, and then you get onto the next project.
Yeah.
So there's this, as part of my business, there's this immense thing of you are completely obsessed with something, and then it's over and you let it go and you move on. My team handles breakups brilliantly because we're so used to it.
Yeah.
It's just life.
It's just like a breakup.
It really is.
Because you get so attached to the couple, the story,
and
the
it's so
people.
funny because for like weeks later we'll text and say, God, we miss our morning meetings and stuff like that. But then everyone sort of moves on with their life, right?
Yeah.
It's quite fun.
Yeah, interesting how human beings are built like that. So that is the integrity that you ensure that you instill in your company, which is that everybody who comes to you deserves the same service and the same kind of effort. And do you ever like recreate or like just lift old designs, and or do you feel like you want to give something very customized to your brides each time?
For a very selfish reason, is because we want to create new things. So only if someone's like, oh, we really love it and we want exactly the same thing as what we do for them. But the point is, we're making 15 new designs in a year. We want to make new stuff because we want to try more things.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if it happens to you, when I look at my old designs, they feel dated to me. And I'm just like, what was I doing?
100%.
Right? So like, we all grow as individuals, so we all want to make newer things, right? Our preferences, our choices, the world is changing. So why would you keep doing the same old stuff again?
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely in awe of businesses that actually are able to do that.
Yeah.
Are able to create a product and then sell it over and over multiple times. Is just not my personality.
So, often people say that creativity, or, even musicians, singers, dancers, you're born with a gift of being creative. Like, either you have it or you don't. What is your view on that?
Firstly, I still don't think I have it. This constant sort of imposter
I would have to disagree,
syndrome.
but I'm going to let you complete.
It's about what you think about yourself, right? Not what others think about you. I figured that I've been able to teach myself design. And I feel like if I can learn it, anybody else can. So I think it can definitely be learned.
You know what I feel that can't be learned? Like, unless you do it with a focused awareness and you have a teacher or a guide or a mentor, at least what I see of students coming out of design schools, like they'll be
No, they don't know anything in design schools. Let me be honest. Let me be very clear about this. They're not learning this in school.
Yeah.
I'm saying it can be learned.
Experience.
Full stop. Not in school.
We don't know where, but it can.
Yeah, it can.
What I'm saying is, like, at least in India, what I feel, because we've been in survival mode for so long and we're kind of coming out of that, there is a certain practicality attached to every purchase, every addition in your home, to your wardrobe and stuff like that, as it rightly should be. And everything is very value for money and all of that. But when I look at just the design, not students, but the artists that are born out of this kind of an upbringing, is that there is a certain kind of a taste gap. Like, I think taste is something that can't be taught.
I have that problem with craft, where I feel like we're so stuck in the older way of doing this, it hasn't caught up. And I'm so glad that there are a lot of people doing this, because I feel like craft for us is very Dilli heart. Whereas it's evolved so much, there's only a few people who have been able to take craft to art. There's that little gap over there. I feel like our whole education system is wanting, not just our design education system. I have this constant joke in office where I point to like people who started design saying, guys, you learned this. I didn't. Like, you have to know how to do this. And they're like, we don't know this. At least once a week, I yell at someone saying, I'm going to call your teachers and say, how do you not know how to do this? But the point is, you can say that about anyone who's learned anything today, right? Our education system is subpar. But that's where I think being out there, working with someone who knows their shit, learning from them, there's no equivalent of that. Of course, there's also tremendous sort of focus on going online, learning yourself as well, but also just like finding a mentor for yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And also I have this whole thing of working for the best.
Yeah.
Because I worked for the best, I know what the top looks like, which is why I'm trying to be at the top, right? Everything I do, I want to be at the top, because I want to be at that level of not just the kind of work we do, but our own principles, practices, things like that, processes. So you have to be working for whoever your version of the best is.
Yeah.
To be able to
I think the associations you make are very important, be it at a peer level, be it at a teacher,
also,
mentor
I think
level.
it has to do with wanting to do better. Can't like the word for it is going, but like
I think that you're born with.
Possibly.
The drive.
Possibly.
Yeah.
The drive
the hunger.
and ambition for sure you're born with. Yeah.
Yeah. That.
Or your mother can slap it into you.
I don't think so. I think you're born with it. It just has to do with, and of course, what you're exposed to. Like, what have you seen growing up? Have you seen drive? Have you seen ambition? I have. Like, even though my mom was a homemaker, as you said, like, your mom would move around things, and my mom would, like, we come from such a humble background that she would take those, the tin car trunks, and she would stitch covers and put it on it and make it into a sofa.
Yeah.
So I've seen that, and I've seen that what beauty can kind of add to your experience of your own life. So I think if you've seen that, then that can come into you. But inherently human beings are lazy. Like, I understand that. I feel that in myself. It's my greatest fear. Like, will people find out I'm really lazy?
So for all my life, I wanted an early retirement.
Yeah.
I turned 35 last year, and I was like, what a scam this early retirement is. I was like, I want to die shouting on site. I was like, I want to work till I'm 90.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I want to die shouting on site, figuring out why things haven't turned up. I was like, that's the life I want for myself.
Yeah. They're shouting on site. That's what I heard in your interview. You were like, I can bring out this personality that's shouting, and in the next second I'll be like, oh, lovely dress, or like lovely lipstick, or whatever. And I see that in myself. Like, when I have to discipline somebody or like just express my viewpoint, I see myself switching, because it's an effort to get angry also now.
Correct.
Because you're just like, I expected them to do this.
So people come to you and tell you to go and scream at someone, because they do that to me all the time now. Yeah.
You'll have to tell them, and I really have to put on that, like, okay, I should message somebody, and because it's my job to like get angry right now, so I do it like that, and then I switch back, and I'm just like really chill about it. And I think that's also exciting to experience in yourself, right? Like,
the most incredible thing that's happened to me, I've now started meeting creative people who run their own businesses, women that are my age. And I have embraced this part of myself, because initially everyone's like, oh my God, she shouts so much, she has a bad temper, stuff like that. And I'm just like, that's what it takes to get a job done,
100%.
guys. And all of them are doing it. And it's not just me, and it's not like I'm mean or vengeful. women have to raise their voices louder to be heard. And I think it's completely fine. I hope the generation after us doesn't have to, because we see so much. But the point is, I don't feel bad about it anymore. And I'm just like, and I always look back, like, I'm so happy to say you do it too. But my point is just like, I look up to other people and I was like, if she is like that, then it's fine for me to be like this also. Like I have lesser means at my disposal, and it's fine for me to be yelling. Or just like being slightly louder to get a point through. And I think it's taken time for me to come around it, because I used to always be so guilty about it.
And I also think that it's contextual, right? Like the industry you're working with, are you working with karigars, artisans, that you have to understand what their mode of communication also is. Because when you're shouting, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, that's
I'm not
so
angry.
mean. It doesn't necessarily translate to that. There are some people who be like, okay, cool, karte hain, you know?
Correct.
It's very different. So to understand that context, that's why I feel so lucky that I get to work with these beautiful, cool young Gen Z folks. At the same time, I get to sit up with my karigars and work next to them, and the worlds cannot be more starkly different.
So we have the same, because you have the whole fancy client life and you're sitting in a 5-star hotel, but then you're also sitting in a go down making a plan on the floor. And like
I love that for us, because I think, wow, what a privilege to be able to experience worlds at both its ends, you know, and creativity at both ends. I think that's wonderful. Okay, so we must shout more. We're so beautiful. We're golden fairies who shout. Okay. So Parsons, interestingly, has started a new curriculum. It's called Experience Marketing. Do you think it is important for aspiring wedding designers? Because I think that when you started it didn't exist. But now there are so many people who want to be just like you. They want to be the next Devika.
Poor things.
No, they want to be. Okay, so how do they go about it? Like, they want to sit down with their parents and say, look, I know you want me to do this course, but I want to do this course. And like, how do you justify? What stream of education do you take on? And do you think these courses can actually teach you the skills?
I don't know what Parsons is teaching, but I know that most of the schools in India are teaching rubbish when it comes in the name of wedding design, because I think what they're doing is exactly what they've done with the rest of the education system. Is they've put it in compartment boxes, saying every venue must have this, it should be this. What they're not encouraging is creative thought. I think anyone looking to do anything in design must learn to have creative thought, must learn to challenge. The thing is, design is finding solutions, right?
Yeah.
And you have to learn to do that.
I think that's brilliantly said.
You can't. It's super easy to learn how to make a floor plan in AutoCAD. I mean, you can YouTube that stuff today, right? So YouTube that stuff and go figure out how to. So what literature did to me was expanded my thought process. It gave me perspective in life. And that is what I bring to design. And I wish more people did that, is learned how to think better, think larger, see the world with a different perspective. I think whatever is teaching you perspective is what you need to pursue, because the rest of the stuff you can learn literally, like there are enough and more courses to do on the side to figure out how to render. I don't know how to render, but it's fine.
I completely relate with that. So hardcore, because I have not really studied design. My sister, who's an interior designer, like, this is her, and she's built some of the most beautiful homes.
Your store is stunning.
Yeah, you've been there?
I've seen enough photos of it.
Okay, but you must. So she has no...
But see, that's what I'm saying. The reason it looks different is because she's not studied design. Is because she doesn't think in the boxes that the education system has made for her.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm very happy I did mass media and journalism, because now today I know what my brand can sound like, what I need to write, what conversations I need to have.
The first piece we put down on paper for a design, a design that I have made, is text. I describe what the space is going to feel like and then put images for it.
Right. So what would you then advise
do design thinking courses, go pursue art, go all of these courses. Why is no one studying philosophy anymore?
Right.
Study literature, study philosophy, go study art theory, art history, see what's happened and then develop it for your own self.
And learn do internships.
Definitely do the internships, because you have to learn the menial shit. I'm a huge propagator of this know your own shit. Like, you have to know everything about your business. I know how cupboards are made. I know how flooring is done, because I have done those hours, and I am surrounded by experts. Like your karigar is the expert on the kind of embroidery he does. How could somebody from a fashion school tell him how to make it when his family's been doing it for 3 generations?
Yep.
So spend time with that person learning his craft. You may have a perspective to it, but you definitely don't know better. For me, this is sort of humbling of you know better than me. When I'm standing on a site and a carpenter's looking at me and I'm just like, why are you asking me? You know how to do it. You are the expert that I have called on. Your name may not be on the door, but I have brought you here to be the expert. Be that expert for me.
Right. So I think that brings me to the next question, where you're saying your name may not be on the door, but you're the expert. How do you, through your work, platform these karigars and artisans? Like,
so one of the things I started doing, it was initially for my partners and karigars, and now increasingly I started doing it for my team also. And it's the most tiny thing, but I'm amazed at the value it has, is I tag them in everything I do. I don't know if you've noticed, there's a whole credit roll that runs, and I'm just like, films have it, why don't we have it?
Yeah.
And I used to do it for partners earlier, and everyone used to be like, yeah, but they'll steal your partners. And I was like, that's exactly what I want done, because I do 15 weddings a year. They're capable of 100. I want everyone to go and find my block printer. They should, I don't know, in Udaipur I found someone who does miniature paintings. I want them to have more work. My style will always be my style, but I want other people to be able to reach out to those people. Similarly with my team, I was like, they have made something. We're now at a stage where they actively design a lot more than I do. My job is literally to critique their design and sort of make sure it's aligned with certain things, but they're the ones making it. And I feel like credit should be given where it's due, and we've spent far too long hiding away our sources and resources.
Yeah.
I love it when I call someone and say, looking for something in so-and-so city, and I get a whole list of like people to reach out to with direct phone numbers, and that's the only way to live life.
But how do you then, what do you do for the karigars who are not on Instagram and who
walk
don't
around all over saying so and so made this? Also, it's a small thing of paying them honest pricing, not negotiating with them. Make sure clients know that where something has come from, because a lot of the times they truly don't know where something has come from.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the smaller stuff over there.
Yeah. And I
don't claim to be doing enough, just saying.
No, I also really enjoyed how you said that, do you think people overspend in weddings, or like your fees are too expensive, to which you said that no, the artists are finally getting their dues, is why I charge what I do.
There's enough money in the world.
Yeah.
There's enough money to solve all world problems. We just don't want to.
So I think our responsibility then is to fight for the artists getting the dues.
Of course.
Because even today, when
I think it's two. One, them getting the due. Second is be able to help them evolve in a more urban mindset.
Systematic.
It's what I said, no, it's that whole Delhi heart perspective of design. It's just tell them that if you make this, it's going to be more interesting, or this of your craft, because they don't have the exposure to what we do.
Yeah.
And that is what design school or any sort of education should be bringing to you, is exposure and perspective that you should be taking back to them and say, this works, this is beautiful, this doesn't work, let's tweak this. Your color palettes don't need to be so primary, let's try a new color. It's just those smaller things. Or lines are cool, you don't have to keep making paisleys, for example. But I hope that we're all able to do that as well.
What, according to you, makes a wedding timeless?
If it is inspired by the people, does that make sense? When it's not following a trend.
Right.
I'll give you an example. We designed this beautiful wedding for this couple. The groom owns Pest Control India, by the way. Obsessed with bugs. Okay, so we did this whole, I can't even say insect theme inspired.
So cute.
But it was the most beautiful, like it has this whole thing. His first meeting with me, he spent telling me about good bugs and bad bugs. And I was just like, dude, I work with really incredible people, okay? So we made this whole wedding for him. His wedding was supposed to happen in Feb. And then for whatever reason, the wedding got pushed to like 8 months later. And then the bride called me and she's like, we've been thinking about it. And I was like, do you want to tweak the design now that we have time? I said, we'll do a seasonal shift of like flowers and stuff that are some are not available, whatever. I said, do you want to change something else now that there's more time? It's still relevant. She's like, we still love everything you made for us. Why would we change anything? So I think just making something that's for you and you love is what is going to be classic.
Is there ever like a friction there where you have a certain vision?
All the time.
And how do you then arrive at
I remember that I'm there to be of service and it's their wedding. And sometimes I fight for it, but then I take a step back saying, if it's your wedding and you want it, sure.
Has Instagram kind of changed how people design their weddings now?
Yeah, of course. Everyone wants like Instagrammable things still. They want a place where photos are going to be taken. It was really funny because just the other day we were planning a wedding and we were like, oh, we'll leave cute Polaroid cameras. And the bride's like, who takes Polaroid photos? Everyone shoots from their phone, just make like selfie points everywhere. The venue is so pretty. And I was just like, that's an interesting way to think. That's how the 20-year-olds are thinking now. Because they're like, who wants a Polaroid photo?
Yeah, right.
Or who wants a photo booth? They're like, we'll just take our own photos.
Yeah. But does it trouble you that Instagram kind of dictates a lot of how you design your sets?
I don't think it dictates something. I'll give you a reverse thing. I also see the world in frames. Like if I'm aligning something, I'll take a photograph of it. Even my own home, I see in frames. Even if I'm not shooting it, I'm seeing the world in frames.
Yeah.
Because that's how we've grown up now and that's how we're growing. And I think it's completely fine because I think it's a more nuanced way to design as well.
Do you also consider what the bride is wearing when you're doing
course.
like the flowers and the colors and stuff like that? But if you start planning so much in
Then
advance,
she decides
I'm
to close
guessing-
according to my decor,
Ah.
which has happened, by the way. A bride has very famously taken my color board to Sabyasachi Mukherjee and said, make my outfit like this. And the first time he met me, he's like, I know who you are. I've seen your mood boards. And I was just like, all right.
Wow.
And I was like, that's a dream, sure.
That's amazing.
But like, it's a constant joke. My first call with them, I was like, do you guys know what you're wearing? And if they say yes, then we work around it. And if they say no, we're going to begin looking. I was like, wait a minute, then I'll design. Now you choose backwards. They're like, yeah, okay. Fine.
Wow.
It's like either way.
You need to become my bestie and say, Shubhika, in this
But, you know,
season, these are the color trends
But we've
for the
done
flowers.
that actually. We've done it for a bride where she's like, okay, so what? Give us designer recommendations. And we were like, with our mehendi look, this designer will work. With our this look, this will work. And they've actually
So you really need to know who's doing what. Yeah, you need
but
to be...
the cool stuff sticks out, right? Like there's so many times we see your outfits, we're like, oh, our spaces can have so much color. They can be like this. I think design in the larger pool is far more cohesive.
Yeah.
Like the shoot we did with you completely blew our minds because that's not a color palette we work with at all.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a typical Indian wedding color palette. And I think it's incredible because that shoot image now has been in our mood board.
What do you want your legacy to be at the end of it all?
I want people to think of me as, so there's a story here. I was quitting my job and someone told me that, you're a big fish in a small pond. Why are you quitting? Do you want to be a small fish in a big pond? And I turned around and said, I want to be the brightest, shiniest orange fish in that pond. And I know you've done that because like when I look at like clothes, I'm just like, I know this is Power on Preach, right? And I'm just like, I want to be that eccentric orange fish. That's what I want my legacy to be. I want people to be like, that one, she was a bit cuckoo, but oh my God, look at what she made.
Oh, you've definitely done. Not cuckoo, but it's beautiful.
All I want to be known as that. And I want to, so a lot of my friends have kids now. I want to be like, I want to be the eccentric cool aunt. I was like, that's my goal for life. As long as they think I'm cool, I've done my life correct.
How important it is, I know that you spoke about Joseph actually like holding you and giving you the best piece of advice you ever received, but how much does it help you to have somebody who's in the same industry? I mean, in the wedding industry, does it help? Like, do you discuss ideas? Do you like just remove your frustrations with each other? Like,
I think it's helpful to have a sounding board who understands what I'm talking about. But I think even if we were in different industries, I would still have that.
Oh, yeah.
And I have an incredible group of friends who have no clue what I do for a living, but are still very involved in every business decision, everything that we do. And I think that's the fun portion of it. I don't think it has to be industry specific, but I think it's important to have around you a group of people who can be your sounding boards.
You know, the tagline for #Preach is once upon a disruption. And every industry, every few years or now at the pace at which we're moving, every few months, it needs a disruption.
Correct.
What disruption you think your industry needs?
I think we need to stop taking ourselves so seriously and have a little more fun. I think we've become a very serious industry. Weddings are supposed to be about celebration and fun. We've now become very serious.
Why do you say that?
Because we're just like it's not even tradition. It's stooped in habit. This is how weddings happen. This is how the first day is, the second day is. People come in, they come from here, they go from here. I think what it needs, someone needs to shake them up and say, live a little, have some fun. You need to enjoy this. I think that needs to be done.
So a lot more
urgently.
Individuality and just fun.
No, and just like non-serious. Like they need to be slightly more unserious about everything.
Yeah. You know, you call yourself a perfectionist, and then at the same time, you talk about fun and you talk about unpredictability and how good you are at managing that. Like, how do all these things kind of tie in together?
I think they have to for your own sanity, because for the longest time I'd forgotten how to be unpredictable. And that takes a toll on the way you think, the way you design, the way you live life. And I think you have to be okay. So I was doing a shoot at home yesterday, and someone asked me what's the most pet peeve, and I was like, I hate a messy house, I hate a messy office. And they're like, would you rather have people at home making your house messy, or a messy, or like a non-messy house? And I was like, definitely people at home making a house messy. I think it's just about choosing what you want more, and about finding the balance between the two, because they can coexist.
Lastly, when do you feel the most comfortable in your skin?
I think I'm really happy on site. I'm really, really happy just in my dirty leggings, in my sneakers, sitting on site, waiting for things coming and going and being installed. I think that feels like home. It's my most like comfortable space. I know what to do, what needs to be done. I know my decisions are going to be spot on over there. I think it's like I've earned that spot in the world.
How soon into you starting your company was it profitable? Like, how long did it take? Like, because I ask this because usually designers come to me and they're like, I'm in my second year and I'm bleeding and I'm burning money. And I'm like, you have to give it 5 years.
The thing with weddings is that it's a project-based industry. So there's no concept of profit till much later. But I think within the first few months, we were cutting even because we only took on work that could sustain us. Does that make sense?
Right.
So our fees, because our fee was flexible, it increased when our back end increased. It's only now where our fee is slightly more than what our back end is. So the word profit reflects on a sheet somewhere. And I'm just like, we made money. Because for a very long time you're just cutting even, and you're content cutting even and being able to like go on a holiday and buy a bag and stuff like that. You don't ever have so much money that you can think of, with this money, what new thing can I do?
Right. And
so that's taken about 10 years now.
100%.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah,
Easy.
that's what I'm saying. And there's no shortcut for it.
Yeah.
If you found a shortcut, you're going to burn out.
So moving on to the rapid fire. Your favorite wedding destination?
I don't have one.
You have
my
to
next
pick.
holiday place. I want to do Morocco and Mexico.
Okay.
It's going to be my next favorite wedding destination.
Your next bride has to get, like, they have to get married there. Okay, got it. Your favorite architect or interior designer?
I'm going to tell you about Julie Temor, who designs sets, and S. Devlin, who also do like experiential international sort of exhibition design. Julie Temor did the sets for Lion King. And I'm obsessed with her because I love that play of multimedia, short-term things. Like creating something for a very finite amount of time and how it evolves. Completely taken by her.
Okay. What are you currently watching or reading?
I'm reading... I have read the first page of Knife by Salman Rushdie, who's my favorite author.
It's such a good book.
Yeah, but just first page just happened yesterday, but that's what's happening there. And what am I watching? I just finished Bridgerton, and I'm sure I have another crap show. I love crap television.
What did you think about Bridgerton season 3? I really enjoyed it. I thought it was the best season out of all 3 that
I like them all
so
because I love shit television.
Yeah.
So when I have to clear my brain, I watch TV. When I have to fill my brain, I read.
Yeah,
Simple.
like I actually wait for Emily in Paris. It makes no sense.
I love it. I used to watch Dynasty.
Your most favorite wedding that you have planned so far?
The last one.
Which one was that?
So I love doing Jamnagar because I had so much creative freedom. And it's just the sheer amount of artists and craftsmen that were involved, the sheer amount of time we had on site. All my walls were hand painted.
Wow.
All the cushions were custom, and someone sort of drew the pattern, then someone else printed it, someone else embroidered it. It was just a joyful process. And to have that kind of time and creative freedom on a project was incredible. So I was like, and it turned out beautifully.
Wow.
Yeah.
Will we ever see pictures?
They're on Instagram. Utna hi. Be happy.
Acha, be happy. ठीक है. Local weddings or destination weddings?
Destination weddings. Also because I think everyone has a lot more fun and they're not stuck in traffic all the time.
Yeah, that's so true. Minimalist or maximalist
Never
weddings?
Minimalist. Maximalist.
Never.
Over the top, out there, joyful.
Agree.
Come on. I'm very Punjabi.
Yeah. A wedding trend you hate?
Harps and this whole Western. perspective on the main wedding day.
Nice. A wedding trend you love?
I love brides who wear their parents' clothes.
Wow.
I feel like it's so, I love the idea of a wedding having bits of heirlooms in it.
Did you do that for your wedding?
Yeah.
You wore your mom's?
I wore my mom's wedding lehenga and I wore 5 generations of jewelry.
Wow, you have to show us those pictures.
It was incredible because, and also a lot of our family jewelry is blue. So I had something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. I had all of them.
Amazing.
I wore really crap shoes because I have know nothing about fashion. But the point was that it was incredible because like on that day, I was just like literally 5 generations of my family are with me here in this moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even when I design weddings, I always think about, will you leave this for your daughter to have should she want it? Because I think that's so special.
And sustainable.
That also.
Yeah. Okay. A piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Take it easy, therav. Just, it takes time, but it comes.
Okay.
Like, don't be in such a rush.
Patience.
Yeah.
Your favorite wedding scene from a movie? Clearly not from the shit show that you just mentioned.
They have stunning sets, by the way. They have incredible sets.
Okay.
Wait, it'll come to me. My brain is saying the entry shot of Crazy Rotations. That wedding thing with the water flowing was just goosebumpy.
Have people done that here with you?
They've tried to. There's also that Made in Heaven shot where that bride goes into the water, which I think is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Both of those in recent times.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. If not a wedding planner,
I'm going to call
would
you
have been-
tonight and tell you, randomly text you my
Ye
favorite
nikal
scene.
dena. Acha.
No, text you my favorite scene from a wedding because it's going to stay with me.
Yeah.
I've never
What do you
thought
think about
about
the
that.
wedding planner? You know, like recently I'm going through a really tough phase at work. So I'm going back to like reading Harry Potter and watching
Do you
Wedding
know I
Planner.
actually decided to do weddings because I saw that film while I was sitting at home wanting to do better. That's how I wound up in weddings. That's the real reason. I was sitting at home and I was like, wait, do people do this in India? And I was just like, let's start asking around. And then my aunt's like, yeah, a friend of mine does it. Because back then there was no publicity, right?
Yeah.
So how would you find someone? But that was like, I was like, I feel like I can do this. It doesn't feel like I need to draw.
An artist that heavily inspires your work.
So I'm very into Mexican artists. I started with my obsession with Frida Kahlo and then I started following a lot more other
I love
architects
Yeah.
there because I feel like their work has joy and their work has whimsy, which is increasingly less in this part of the world, and I love it. Just like I could sell myself for a hot pink room or just like have a little madness
yeah.
there, and I love that their work has it.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Do you name your house plants?
No, but I like give them enough love. I like walk around like stroking them and chatting with them and being like
What do you do
encouraging.
what are the 3 things you do to ground yourself or to bring therav in your life?
Go back to my friends from college who don't take me seriously at all and think I'm a huge like sellout, and they're like, you idiot, who's taking you seriously? I spend time at home. I really like I said, I watch trash TV to clear my brain, and then I read and travel to fill my brain. All 3.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah. And I have a dog now who brings enough therav in my life because in the middle of meetings he'll be like, playtime now.
Oh, you take him to work?
Or when I'm working from home, either scenarios, he's like, meeting over, come on, now playtime.
Yeah.
You have to wake up in the morning.
That's what I love about animals. They're so in the present that you can't help but be in the present.
And I feel like it's incredible because how much they teach you without wanting to.
Thank you, Devika.
Thank you.
This has been so lovely for me to talk to somebody who has such a nuanced perspective on what it takes to be successful in an industry that is otherwise deemed probably frivolous or just, showmanship and stuff like that. I think a lot of fashion also, and Indian fashion is also seen from the same lens. But it's good to connect with all the principles and the ethics that you lead your life and your work with. And I think that clearly translates into the success that you have built today. And I can't wait to see what you do in your next 3 decades. Or 4 decades.
4 decades.
And that wraps up another episode of #Preach. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And don't forget to join in on the next conversation on #Preach Season 2.